Welcome back, everybody. This is Rob from Crown of Thorns with part 4 of Daniel's 70 weeks. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the first 3. Hopefully, you've been able to follow along. Hopefully, you have a better understanding as to what God was saying to Daniel and how it played out exactly that way. And we're seeing it happen right now, which leads us to what I consider, or what many consider, that we are in the end times. And I think that we are this close to the rapture. And in fact, I firmly believe it could be in September of 2022. We talked about that in the previous video, tying into Rosh Hashanah and the Feast of Trumpets. It could easily happen in September of this year. Again, give or take, because we're dealing with different calendars. But even if that does not happen, then I'll dive back in and start doing more work and try to figure this thing out, because Revelation 3:3 tells us that if we're looking, if we're studying, then we will know. We can know when Jesus is coming back. All right? And we should want to know. We should want to be looking. Okay? If you have a relative that's coming to visit you and you know it, it makes it nice if you kind of know exactly when they're coming, right? Or at least a time frame. Makes it easier to plan. So I think that as saved Christians, following along Revelation 3:3, we should be looking and watching and wanting to know and be prepared and get other people prepared as well. Now, if Jesus comes before that, I'm not going to be upset. Okay? If Jesus came right now, I would not be upset. I'd be very happy. And if you're saved, you should be happy too. For those of you that are not saved, I feel sorry for you. All right? Maybe, if you're an unsaved person, hopefully you've been watching this series, hopefully something's starting to speak to you. Hopefully something's pricking your heart and you're looking to get saved. Look, to kind of recap and to put this all into perspective, remember, way back here, okay, during the 70 years of captivity, God revealed to Daniel all of the kingdoms that would come thereafter. And it played out exactly that way. Now, only God could do that. Okay? God took Daniel through each one of these different kingdoms and laid it out exactly how it was going to play out and what's going to happen in the future, this revived Rome. All of it's going to play out. In fact, if you look around, if you're watching, you can see the Bible unfolding day by day. You can see that everything that Jesus talked about, everything that Paul talked about, everything that Daniel talked about, everything that John was revealed to John in the book of Revelation is happening around us right now, exactly as the Bible said it would happen. That should tell you something. All right? So I want to do a quick review. First, speaking of getting saved, 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. The gospel encapsulated, the means by which we are saved. Trusting on the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Knowing the who and the what. The what? Death, burial, and resurrection. The who? You have to know and trust and believe that Jesus is God in the flesh. And that he took your place on that cross. Romans 3:25. Trusting on the atoning blood of Jesus Christ. The means by which we are saved. Ephesians 1:13. Once you're saved, you're always saved. You cannot lose your salvation. If somebody's telling you otherwise, they are a liar, a heretic, and or ignorant. Okay? Read the Bible for yourself. You'll see you cannot lose your salvation. So, let's go back a minute to the 70 years of captivity. All right? That's what we were talking about in video 1, part 1 of this series. Is Daniel. Remember, Moses had led the Hebrews out of Egypt. All right? They wandered around in the desert for 40 years. And then Moses died. He was not allowed to go into the promised land. You can read that for yourself. Joshua takes up Moses' place, and he leads the Hebrews into the land of Canaan. They go in there and they conquer the land of Canaan, not as well as they should have, and it would come back to plague them But they went in there, they cleared the land, and they set up this new nation, Israel. However, from the time they went in there, God told them, every 7 years you need to let the land rest. That would be a sabbatical year. That would be the Shemitah, year of release. They did not do that. And soon they fell into debauchery, and they divided up into two kingdoms. The northern kingdom was carried away into captivity in 722 by Assyria. And then Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon would take out the southern kingdom, starting in 605, right through about 586 BC, of course. Because they had, well, one, because they fell into sin. They had a bunch of bad kings, a bunch of debauchery, but also because they did not give the land the rest. So God accumulated all those sabbatical years that should have been honored and respected, and he sent them away for 70 years to make sure that land got the rest it deserved. All right? So the Jews are now in Babylon. They're in captivity for 70 years. All right? And these visions are revealed to Daniel, telling him about these future kingdoms that would come along. Also, a lot about the end times. Okay? And we're going to look at a couple of things here in a second that will kind of tie this all together. So let's look at Daniel. We're going to look at chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 31 through 41. Well, 42, 43. Okay, it's a long passage, but 31 through 43. And this is God revealing these coming kingdoms to Daniel. All right? Thou, O king, sawest and behold a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. I tried to draw it here. It's jank, I get that. But there's this image that Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt about, and he's asking, what does it mean? And Daniel says, well, I can't tell you, but God can tell you. And so God speaks through Daniel and reveals what this dream means. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and the gold broken to pieces became like chaff in the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. All right? So we got that here. That's Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire. All right? And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, which would be this one of silver, the arms of silver. That would be the Medo-Persian Empire. Daniel talks more about that in chapter 8. So God is revealing to Daniel to tell Nebuchadnezzar, these are the order, these are the different kingdoms that are coming after yours. Yours is the greatest. Yours is really powerful, hence gold. The one after you is going to be inferior, but still decent. It's silver. But they successively get a little bit weaker, okay, until we get to the brass and then the legs of iron. All right? All right, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. Now, that would have been the Grecian Empire, Alexander the Great. All right? So those are the sides of brass. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So, we have the legs of iron. I guess that would be that there. That is obviously the Roman Empire, which was in play even at the time of Christ. All right. Now, the Roman Empire eventually dissipated. All right. But there will be a revived Rome in the book of Revelation, especially when they're talking, whenever they say Babylon, they're actually referring to Rome. They use Babylon as a code word for Rome. They couldn't say Rome because then they would have been killed because they were under the Roman Empire. You don't say bad things about the Roman Empire if you want to live. All right. This revived empire during this 70th week, this tribulation period, that is the 10 toes of clay and iron. And when it talks about the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, the Antichrist is going to rule over the entire world. Okay? But his strength, his control over certain parts will be stronger than others. In those parts where it's really strong, where he's got a firm grasp, those are the toes of iron. In the places where he doesn't have quite as much power, he doesn't have maybe enough military to go to these outer places, whatever it may be, those are the pieces of clay. All right, that's why it says that they shall be partly broken. And when we talk about those who endure to the end, those who stay under the radar, they don't take the mark of the beast, they stay under the radar, they get through to the end of that tribulation period, most likely they're in those places where it was the 10 toes of clay, where the Antichrist didn't have as firm of a grasp. Okay? So that's what Daniel's talking about. He leads us all the way through this human history, and it played out exactly like that. Okay? Daniel made that prophecy back here with Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? And sure enough, just like Daniel said, pretty soon the Medo-Persian Empire came, and then the Grecian Empire, and then the Roman Empire. Daniel was dead long before all of that, and it played out exactly as Daniel said because it was revealed to him by God. Okay? Now, one more passage to kind of encapsulate and summarize everything. Go to chapter 9. We're going to start in verse 24. God is speaking to Daniel. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. God is revealing to Daniel, one, this end time period, the 70 weeks, which are determined upon Daniel and his people and his holy city, the Jews. Okay? These 70 weeks are for the Jews. 69 of them were accomplished already. The 70th one is the tribulation period. That's why it is not for us. All right? But it says that from the time that this decree goes out to restore, to rebuild Jerusalem, from that point until the time that the Messiah would be cut off, which just means killed, would be the first 69 weeks, 483 years. And sure enough, Artaxerxes, we talked about him, in the year 445, makes that final decree. The Jews go back, they start rebuilding Jerusalem, the temple, the wall, all of that. That is when Daniel's 70 weeks begin. And from that point until this point when Jesus is on the cross is the 483 years, 69 weeks. All right? So, that is what brought us to this point today. But Daniel's talking a lot about the end times and what's going to happen. Now, the rapture would not be revealed until Paul. Okay? So, we talked last time about the rapture and what happens to those of us that rapture out of here, the judgment seat of Christ and the marriage feast of the Lamb. Those who do not rapture out because they're unsaved, they go through that tribulation period. Okay? We come back at the end of that 7 years for the second coming and the battle of Armageddon. All right? And who are we fighting at the battle of Armageddon? Well, it's all these people here under the Antichrist that chose to take the mark of the beast, who still believed the Antichrist was that guy, that Messiah. He gathers up his armies, They fight against us. We win. No casualties on our side. They are immediately sent to hell. And the devil is locked away for 1,000 years in a pit. Those who endured to the end, okay, go into the millennial kingdom in mortal bodies. Those of us who raptured up and those who got saved during the tribulation, who also went up to heaven then, we came back on those white horses with Jesus. We rule and reign with Jesus over those in their mortal bodies for 1,000 years. Now we're going to find out what happens after that. Okay, the 1,000 years, these people in mortal bodies are still marrying and having children, so the population is growing. We in our glorified bodies are not marrying, are not having children. We are ruling and reigning with Christ over those other people to make sure they toe the line. All right? All right, I need a drink. All right. Good times. I've had a great time doing this series. Hopefully this has been a blessing to you. Hopefully this is helping you to understand how Daniel plays into this, how Revelation plays into this, how 1st and 2nd Thessalonians plays into this, and how Matthew 24 plays into this. And if you're rightly dividing, you will come up with this scenario right here. I didn't make this up. Okay? This is directly right out of the Bible. All right? But you need to check it for yourself. Do not take my word or anyone else's for it. All right? All right. So, now we're going to go back to the book of Revelation. And we're going to continue where we left off, talking about the millennial kingdom, the second coming, and what takes place there. So Revelation 19. All right, we're going to read verses 11 through 14. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. This is when we come back at the second coming for the battle of Armageddon. All right? That battle takes place. These guys lose. They're cast into hell. Satan is locked in the pit. And now those who eked through, endured to the end, they go into the millennial kingdom in their immortal bodies, and now we rule and reign with Christ over them. Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. So, again, the devil is locked into this pit for 1,000 years. So he cannot deceive anybody. He can't tempt people anymore. But these people, as I said before, in their mortal bodies still have a sin nature. So they're going to still foul up. Okay? And then it says that eventually, at the end of that 1,000 years, he's released. The devil is released for a little season. We'll see what that's all about. But notice here the different names, the different descriptors of the devil. That dragon, the serpent, devil, Satan. That's how we know when you're reading the rest of your Bible, when it's talking about that serpent, like in the Garden of Eden, or the dragon that's referred to in Revelation, the devil, Satan, is all the same guy. That's how we know that all those different descriptions, all those different pronouns, I guess, are referring to the same guy, the same person, the devil, Satan. All right? So, Revelation 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads, or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. What is that referring to? That's not about the people that get saved during the tribulation. Again, that's confirmation that you can get saved during the tribulation. But what does it say? They were beheaded. I keep saying this. It's faith plus works. You have to have faith in Christ, but you're going to be beheaded because you did not take the mark of the beast in your forehead or in your hand. And notice, in your forehead and in your hand. That's what the King James says. All the other perversions say on. And that could really throw some people off. Okay, if you're going through the tribulation period and you're trying to get right and you're being offered this mark and you've been reading the New International Version or the NLT or whatever else, and they offer you the mark and you think that it goes on your head or on your right hand, and they say, no, don't worry, this isn't going to go on, it's going to go in. Well, you might inadvertently take that thinking, oh, okay, it's not on my head or on my right hand, this is going in, I'm okay. No, only the King James gets it right. If it goes in your right hand or in your forehead, that is the mark of the beast. Again, King James only. King James only. I've done videos on that, probably 3 or 4. Go back and watch them. You will see why the King James is where God preserved his word. And it is so important because for people who don't get saved, even right now it's important. Absolutely, it's important right now. But for people who are going through the tribulation period, if they're reading the wrong perversion, if they're not reading the King James Bible, they could inadvertently condemn themselves to hell by taking the mark of the beast. Because they don't know if it's in or on. It is in, as it says here in the King James Bible. All right? And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Why? Because when you get saved, even during the tribulation, you go up to heaven. And then you're going to ride down with the rest of us at the second coming. All right? And they get to rule and reign with Christ, just like us who got saved back here. All right? Let's see. Revelation 24. And now we're going to go to Revelation 20, verses 7 through 9. All right? And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. One more verse. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. It's going to be a short battle. But notice this. Satan's loosed at the end of this 1,000 years out of that pit. And it says that he goes out and deceives the nations. And he gathers together an army, and gathers them together for battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Who are all these people he's gathering up? Well, it's these mortal people, these people that endured to the end during the tribulation. They went into the millennial kingdom in mortal bodies, but they live a long time because these are idyllic conditions, just like back here in the Garden of Eden. But like I said in the last video, as they get farther and farther into that 1,000 years, you have to understand, generation after generation after generation, they don't get to see what these people saw back here. And you lose touch. And maybe bad parenting, I don't know, whatever. More and more as it goes along, there'll be people who'll be like, I don't believe that. This Jesus guy is nothing. Or they're going to be mad because Jesus is ruling with an iron rod. And they're saying, what a jerk. I can't do anything. I foul up a little bit and I'm getting chastised for it. They're going to be angry. There will be people, even in that idyllic condition, that will still turn from God. Adam and Eve did. They had perfection. They had a personal relationship with God, and they still broke the one commandment that they had, and they ate from the tree. Lost it all. Same thing is going to happen here. These people are going to turn. They're not going to want to be under the rule of Christ because he's so much of a dictator. He's a jerk. He's ruling with that iron rod. But also, I don't believe this stuff that happened back here 800-900 years ago. A lot of people can be born in 1,000 years. Okay? Those people, not all of them, not all. There will be some that remain true and continue in their faith in Christ. and continue to do their good works, because again, salvation is by works here. But a lot of them are going to turn away, and when Satan is loosed, Satan goes out and deceives the nations. Hey, that guy was a jerk. That's the guy you need to watch out for. He's the bad guy. Join my army, we'll overthrow him, and then we'll set up this beautiful new kingdom. And people will fall for it. And so they go into battle against the saints of God. They encompass the city of Jerusalem. They want to destroy that first. But God sends down a bolt of fire. Is that what it said? Something like that. Fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. There's not even really a battle. Nobody even has to raise up their sword or anything. The devil and all his army, which is the same as the sand of the sea, they encompass the holy city. They're ready to destroy Jerusalem, and God sends down some fire, devours them all. Done. But still, it's just amazing to think that even in those idyllic conditions, where there's no killing, no murdering, no evil animals, none of that stuff, everything is great and perfect, like it was back here at the creation, and people still fall away. Which just goes to show, yes, the devil can tempt us, but he can't make us do anything. He's locked away for 1,000 years, and yet people still sin. What does that tell you? We have a sin nature. Even without the devil, we're still going to foul up. Okay? We do. Okay? It just goes to show. The devil can tempt you. He can take you all the way up to the line where sin begins. He can't make you sin. The devil can't make you do anything. Okay? You make that decision. You are the one that steps over that line. Your sin nature is what will take you over that line and into sin. The devil can push you up there. He'll get you up there right up to the very closeness, the very limit. But he can't make you do it. It's you and I that make that decision. All right? Let's keep going. So, Satan gathers his army. They're devoured by fire. Well, what happens next? Revelation 20, verses 10 through 15. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Keep listening. And I saw a great white throne. Remember, back here we talked about the judgment seat of Christ for the saved church. This is the great white throne. This is, you do not want to be here. If you find yourself here, it's bad news for you. All right? And him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. Those of you who believe, or don't believe, actually, those of you that never got saved, you're going to be judged by your works. And trust me, your works are never good enough. Even for a saved person, if we were going to be judged for our works, we would not make it. Our works are as filthy rags before God. Okay? That's not to say we shouldn't do good things. We should. That'll come in handy. It'll be nice at the judgment seat of Christ, but they will not get you to heaven. Your works cannot get you to heaven. All right? And when these people who never got saved stand before God, and their names are not written in the book of life, now they're going to be judged by their works. And even if they've done a million good things, even if they've only done one bad thing, they've already been separated from God. They never bridged that gap by trusting on what Jesus did. They are eternally separated from God. And it talks about how the devil, the beast, and the false prophet are cast into that lake of fire, right? Excuse me. Now, these people who are judged for their works and can't make it to heaven, you'll never make it to heaven based on your works, that's where they're going to go too. Okay, we'll keep going. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So, these people that die, okay, unsaved, are in hell right now. Okay? Anyone who dies, even in the future, unsaved, they go into hell. Okay? They are brought out of hell and stand before the great white throne, before God. They are judged for their works, and they're not going to make it to heaven based off their works. They are then cast back into hell, and then all of hell is cast into that lake of fire with the devil, the beast, and the false prophet. And that is where they spend all of eternity. Okay? It says they are tormented day and night forever and ever. I don't wish that upon anybody. Anybody. I encourage you to get saved. All right? Verse 15. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. How do you get your name in the book of life? Get saved. Trust right now on the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, knowing that he is God in the flesh. You do that, you trust, which is the only thing you can do that is not a work, you're saved. You're now on your way to heaven. You won't have to deal with any of this. The tribulation, you won't have to deal with the great white throne, you won't have to deal with hell or the lake of fire. None of that will matter. Those of you who don't get saved, that's what you have in store. That's what you have waiting for you. I don't wish that upon anyone. That is a scary, scary thought. A very sad thought, too. Salvation right now is so easy. Easier than it's ever been. I said before, back here it was always faith plus works. Don't eat from the tree. Under Moses, keep the law. Keep the law. Yes, you had to have faith in God too, but you had to keep the law. Even under Jesus, the rich young ruler said, "Hey, what do I need to do so I can make it to heaven?" Jesus told him, "Keep the commandments." What? Yeah, even under Jesus, under his ministry, faith plus works. Faith in Jesus, but hey, keep those commandments too. Under Peter, faith plus works. You had to get baptized in water in order to get saved until Cornelius. Then it starts to change. Faith plus works. Under Paul, it changes. Faith alone. Ephesians 2:8-9. Not of works, lest any man should boast. So when you read the book of James, and people say this to me all the time, well, James says it's faith without works is dead. So you have to have faith and you have to do good works in order to get to heaven. The Catholics dwell on this. They base their whole false religion upon it. James, let's read the first. Let's go to James for a second. I'm going to show you something. Go to the book of James. We're going to read the very first line of James. All right. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. So who is James writing to? He's writing to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad. Who are the 12 tribes? Jews. Why are they scattered abroad? Because they're in the tribulation period, right? And after the Antichrist desecrates the temple, remember Jesus said, "Hey, get out of town. Run to those mountains. Go somewhere, anywhere but there." They're scattered abroad. They're Jews. James is talking to Jews. Now, there are some things in James. I did a Bible study on this. Does James apply to us? Yes, some of it does. Some of my favorite stuff that we can use all the time is in the book of James. 1:19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. I can take that and say, yeah, that can apply to me. That doesn't contradict anything that Paul talks about in Romans through Philemon. That works. I can do that. But when it talks about faith without works is dead, that's the opposite of what Paul says. Paul says it's by faith alone. James is saying faith plus works because, again, he's talking to Jews in the tribulation, and it will be faith plus works again. Paul is talking to the church right now. That's why I say the Bible is written, all of the Bible is written for us, but only Romans through Philemon is written to us. The books of Paul. Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles. So, read those books, Romans through Philemon. Take that. Apply that to you. When you read other books of the Bible, James, Jude, whatever else, take it and whatever lines up with what Paul is saying, take that and apply it. If it says something opposite of what Paul is saying, it's not written to you. It does not apply to you. Like James, when he talks about faith without works is dead, it doesn't apply to us. It applies to the people going through the tribulation. Again, rightly dividing. All right? So that's important. How did I get there anyway? I don't know. Anyway, so those people, the great white throne, and we're going to be standing there, by the way. We're going to be standing there watching this happen. You're going to see your friend, your neighbor, your uncle, your aunt, your niece, who you never talked to. You're going to watch as they stand before God, and they're judged for their works, and then they're cast into hell. You're going to see that. See, people say, oh, I can't wait to get to heaven. There'll be no pain and no more crying, because that's what it says in Revelation. Yes, it does say that, but we're not to that point yet. We'll see that in a minute. At this point, there's still tears in heaven. Hey, Eric Clapton was right. There's tears in heaven. All right? Right now, it says that there's a compass of witness about us. I think sometimes God lets our dead friends, relatives, whatever, that were saved, that are in heaven, I think every now and again, he lets them look down here and see what we're doing. And sometimes they probably look down and smile. Like, oh, Rob's doing good. He's doing a good video right now. Then they see me driving and yelling and screaming at people and beeping my horn, and they're like shaking their head like, oh my gosh, no. Okay, they can see that stuff sometimes. I think God gives them a glimpse. But what if they see you when you're doing something completely wrong, completely bad? They're crying. They see people down here dying or in pain, suffering. They're crying. Yeah, absolutely. It's not until later that there's no more of that. And right here, when we're standing there, and we're watching people being cast into hell, whether you know them or not, that's going to be a sad, sad event. Absolutely. But especially sad if it's someone that you should have talked to, but you never did, because you didn't want to offend them or upset them. You didn't want them to yell at you. You know, all you can do is try. Plant the seed, and then it's up to them what they do with it. But at least get it out there. At least say something. Make them think. Because once you present the gospel to someone, your hands are clean. If they choose to reject it and burn in hell someday, that's not on you. But if you've never spoken to your Aunt Mary or whomever, knowing that she's unsaved, and then she stands there and judged by her works and she's cast into hell, you're not going to go to hell because you can't lose your salvation, but you are partially responsible for her not getting saved. Because you chose not to say anything. Because you didn't want to upset her. You didn't want her to get mad at you. You didn't want her to take you out of the will. Whatever it may be. All right? So we're going to watch that. We're going to watch as that happens. As those people are cast into hell. And then all of hell is cast into the lake of fire. And then all of this stuff is burned up. And God creates a new heaven and a new earth. And I want to at some point make a video about why a new heaven and a new earth, and who gets what, who is where. Are we on the new earth? Are we in the new heaven? It depends. We'll do a study on that. So anyway, Revelation 21, 1 through 4. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. Here we go, verse 4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. There shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Notice this is Revelation 21, which comes after all the things we just talked about. So again, that's why I believe that no sadness thing, I don't think that exists right now. I think that will come later, after the new heaven and the new earth. Okay? Why do I say that? Well, one, because people get caught up in heresy, sometimes unknowingly, and say things like, oh, well, you know, my person is in a better place now. Well, hopefully, if they're saved, they are. But I tell you what, if that person died and they weren't saved, they're not in a better place. Secondly, just because they're in heaven right now doesn't mean that they don't get to look down here and see some of the sad stuff happening down here. People dying, people suffering. They get to see that sometimes. We are compassed about a witness of clouds. Or a clouds, yeah, witness of clouds? Cloud of witness, sorry. So they're watching, okay? It's not until the new heaven and new earth when God wipes those tears away and no more of that. Now I'm looking for the part where, now that I think about it, where's the part where the calories and cholesterol don't count anymore? I'm hoping that's back here at the marriage feast, because, man, I want to eat and not have to worry about it, all right? We'll see, though. All right, so that is eternity. We go into eternity. We, who are saved, we go into eternity, and we get to spend all of eternity in the presence of God, in the presence of Christ, in a state of perfect bliss. Nothing bad, nothing negative, nothing upsetting. It's going to be perfect, perfection. But the flip side is those who never got saved, they're spending an eternity in hell. And that's really, really sad. So eternity with God or an eternity in hell. Let's take a look. Let's go to Matthew 24. And we'll look at verse 51. Matthew 24:51. Says, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Those are the people who are cast into hell. Weeping and gnashing of the teeth. Jesus would also say at times, where the worm goeth and never dies. You don't die when you go to heaven. You don't go into a soul sleep. You aren't just dead. You are conscious. You have thoughts, you have feelings, and you're going to be suffering. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. It is not a pleasant place. I beg of you to look into this. I beg of you to consider that what I'm saying is true. Not because I'm saying it, but because it's in the Bible, written by an infinite, all-knowing, all-powerful God who is everywhere at one time. Okay? He put this together, and it fits so perfectly. Look, if you've watched this and you've seen how this thing plays out so perfectly, that has to tell you something. Right? I hope you'll get saved. For those of you that don't ever get saved, those who didn't ever get saved, that's what they have. That's what they are doing. That's what they will have for all of eternity. On the flip side, for those of us who do get saved, who are saved, go to Matthew chapter 9. We'll look at verse 48. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted. Revelation 21, 1 through 4 was where those of us that are saved. This is another verse for those that are in hell. All right. This is the one I was talking about. 48. Where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Again, hell is also all of eternity. That lake of fire is going to be all of eternity. The worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. You're going to be burning for all of eternity. Conscious, feeling. You're going to know it. Matthew 24:51, Mark 9:48 confirm that when you're in hell, you're not just dead, you're not sleeping, you're not just gone. You are alive for all of eternity, suffering in torment. Conversely, Revelation 21, 1 through 4 tells us that we will go into all of eternity with God, without pain, without suffering. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's where I want all of you to be. So, if you're saved, what are you doing to get other people saved? Are you talking to people? Are you passing out tracts? Are you soul winning? Are you sharing videos? Are you making videos? What are you doing to get people saved? How important is it to you that your friends and relatives go to heaven? How important to you is it that they avoid an eternity of torment and suffering? See, we have trials and tribulations and suffering here on earth. But I said this before in a previous video. The comfort we can take in that is, even though it may seem like a long time because we're mortal, It's all temporary. It will go away. However, if you go to hell, that never goes away. It's all of eternity. So talk to that person that you know isn't saved. Hand out a tract. Lay it on the table at the restaurant. Pass them out at Walmart. Share this video so that other people will watch it, hopefully, and get saved. That's what we want, is for people to get saved. Okay? If you're not saved, I pray that you will get saved. I pray that you will look at this or something and realize that it's way too perfect to be a coincidence, way too perfect to have been contrived by ordinary men. I hope that you'll see that, wow, this has to be the work of an all-powerful God. That's a start. At least you can get the evolution junk out of your brain and at least acknowledge that there's a creator. The next part is to find which God, because there's a whole bunch of them being perpetuated out there. There's the one true God of the Bible, the King James Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you need to know about a man who was God in the flesh, 100% God, 100% man, who came and fulfilled all that law for us, who died on a cross to pay for all of our sins, past, present, future, and all you need to do is trust on what he did, and you will be saved for all of eternity. I pray that for you. I pray that for anyone who is not yet saved. All right, guys, this one came to about 45 minutes, so that's not too bad. I think it was good to space it out over 4 different parts. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comments below or find me on Facebook or email me. I try to answer all the questions. I can't get to all of them, but I'm hoping that this series answered a lot of those questions that I wasn't able to get to, or that it would have been too hard to try to tape that all out and make it sound coherent and make sense. I think sometimes it's just easier just drop it into a video like this. I'm hoping that this series answers a lot of those questions that I was receiving. Okay? But I want to hear what you have to say, your feedback, your questions, your comments. I appreciate all of it. I ask, too, that if you're watching this video, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it. And also, please share it. The further this video goes out, the more people that share it, the greater the chance that someone will hear it, watch it, and get saved. That's what we want. Okay? That is the whole goal and purpose of this channel. I hope that that we, as the Saved Church, can reach as many people for Christ as possible. All right? Unfortunately, we know that there will be some who will not get saved, who will not believe, and they will spend eternity in hell. But let's try to bring that number down, even if it's by just one at a time. Just plugging away, plugging away. Again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, this was a blessing to you. Hopefully, this cleared up some stuff for you. Hopefully, it makes you ask some more questions, and you'll get into your King James Bible and start looking for yourself. Oh, and by the way, you can see I brought my new Bible in. I think in one of the videos I mentioned I was using my hardback Bible because I'd left this one in my vehicle after doing Bible study at a friend's house. But I brought it in, obviously, because here it is. Used it this time in the video prior to this one. Who cares? I don't know. Anyway, throughout this, the last video and this one, because I recorded 3 and 4, one right after the other, I've been enjoying this fruit punch body armor. Good stuff. They taste good and they're all natural. I like that. So, yeah. Any other rabbit trails? I don't think I went off on too many this time. In this video, or even throughout the 4 videos. I don't think I did. I may have. Go back and watch my video about never hesitate to say you're sorry. It's a good message. I think everybody can use that. It has nothing to do with this series, but when you get a chance, just check that one out and watch. You can see it in progress. It's like a car accident. It's like watching a car accident as it takes place. I was drinking one of those nitro Pepsis, A lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine. I don't do it often, but I did that day. Watch that video and you'll see as I'm slowly just going off the rails. You'll see a difference between that video and some of these other ones where I kind of keep it reined in. Try to anyway. All right, guys. Again, hope this was a blessing to you. Take care and God bless.